Welcome to the Low Demand Parenting Podcast, where we drop the pressure, find the joy, and thrive, even when it feels like life is stuck on level 12 hard. I'm Amanda Diekman, author, autistic adult, and mom of 3. I'm not here as an expert, but a fellow traveler. Together, we're learning how to live more gently, authentically, and vibrantly in this wild parenting life. When I first began to practice what I now call low demand with myself and with my kids, we were in a crisis. Many of you may be in a crisis moment right now, or maybe you just know that there's more. You've seen that something else is possible beyond the standard parenting path that you've been handed. That's all about hustle, work harder, raise the bar, make them achieve independence. And that's just not working for you, or it's not working for your kid. And you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I show up for this life? Maybe you're neurodivergent and it's never worked for you, and you're having to relearn how you're going to live at the same time as your kid is demanding from you that you show up differently for them and create a different container for them. One of the big mindset shifts when we were in crisis, but that has carried me through every single day since then, is the shift from won't to can't, from they won't do it, he won't go, she won't, to can't. So won't is everywhere. Won't goes back to some really early thinkers in child development. The won't mentality thinks that kids are only motivated by pleasure and pain, and that it is our job as parents to make things sufficiently pleasant so that they'll do the things we want them to do, and painful and bad when they don't do the things that we want them to do, in order to grow up to be humans who know how to do the good and avoid the bad. The first place to start with low demand is around our mindset, because we can't change the world until we do the radical work changing ourselves. So this isn't about how to change the grandparents, how to change your partner, how to change the whole field of psychology. This is about unlearning this view that we've been handed. The world has said, won't is the way. Your kids won't do anything if you didn't make them. Left to their own devices, kids are lazy and self-interested, and they'll just play video games all day and be rude to you and be slobs and stay up all night. It could be said about us too. If you've said won't to yourself, well, Amanda says that I shouldn't clean out of the shoulds or out of shame, that I should only clean up when I actually feel like I have the energy to do it. Well, I know me, and I'm lazy. I won't do it. I won't do it unless somebody forces me. So you may have the won't inside as well. It's not just the way we look at others, it's also the way that we look at ourselves. It can create a lot of mean self-talk in our head. It goes straight into, it's my fault, I messed it up, I'm bad. Here's what can't does. Try this on for size. When we have a can't mentality, it immediately shifts our thinking from finding fault and blame in the person to looking at the surroundings and asking, how can I change the environment? How can I change the asks? Or is this even the right thing to be asking in the first place? Could I let this go? Which is why it's the foundation of low demand. At first, it may feel like a leap of faith, because won't is so reinforced, because we've been raised with won't. And to shift can't can feel like, I don't even know if that's true. Like, what about bad people? All these what abouts pop up. It can't be won't. It can't be the environment. It can't be that we all want to do the good, that we all are doing the best that we can. Like, that can't be true, because I've been so hurt and because the world is so broken, and it can feel so intense. So we're going to just pull it back to you and your child and just your own inner work. Just wondering, could I make the shift? See if even the things that you verbalize in your world could shift from won't to can't. Instead of, my kid won't fall asleep unless I rub her back for like an hour and sing. And if I even try to sneak out, she is instantly awake and she just will not fall asleep without me. Right? Okay. So that is like, what is wrong with my kid and how do I change my kid? Because if they won't do it, we got to make them. What if it's, my kid can't fall asleep unless I rub her back for 45 minutes? I try to slip out, she can't fall asleep and she instantly wakes up and needs me back there. I mean, first of all, it just helps you take a breath like, oh, you just can't. This is where we're at right now. The other thing that it powerfully does is it introduces us to different questions. Now, if she can't fall asleep without me rubbing her back for 45 minutes, I wonder what's happening. I wonder why. I wonder what the rubbing back is doing. I wonder what me being present is doing. I wonder what her body feels like at the start of the 45 minutes and what it feels like at the end. I wonder if she can tell when she's getting ready for sleep. I wonder if I rub for 30 minutes, if that would be okay. I wonder if this could shift, right? Like it just creates so much possibility and curiosity and wondering. We're not stuck. This is where we're at right now. Right now, my kid can't eat anything except for McDonald's. Right now, we can't leave the house. Right now, we can't access therapy. Right now, we can't find a way to diagnosis. Right now, I can't go to the bathroom by myself. This is where we're at right now. Doesn't mean I feel good about it. You can feel bad about this reality. This can be killing you. And there's room for that. There is room to say, I can't do this another day. There is room to say, my kid can't do what it is that the school is asking or what it is that my partner thinks he should be able to do. All those can't can exist with all our feelings around them. But we don't turn it inward or we don't turn it against our kid and say, and so what's wrong with you? Like, why? We say, I wonder why. What about can't as an inability versus doesn't have the skill? Won't presumes that there's some kind of flaw inside the person, that they won't do it, that they don't have the willpower or the desire, or that they're not good. Whereas can't is looking at the situation and asking, what about this expectation isn't a match for this person's capability right now? If you've come from Ross Greene's plan B, plan A, plan C, I did that in a weird order, mentality, then one thing that Ross Greene really emphasizes is lagging skill. So in that framework, first, you do an inventory of your kid and what are all of the lagging skills that may be contributing to their inability to meet these expectations. And I really like that. And I have found in my own thinking for my kid, it does get me thinking, okay, then how do I teach these skills? Which Ross Greene will always say that the lagging skills are really just for the adult lenses, they say in that framework, which means your ability to look at your kid through a can't lens. But in practice with working with parents around collaborative and proactive problem solving and in myself, I find that that's really hard to hold. That thinking skill-based does get me like, okay, well, then I need to teach this skill because I've got to get my kid able to meet this expectation. And sometimes yes, and sometimes no. So one thing that low demand introduces into the framework is a really clear understanding both of the skills, but also of the nervous system. This happens for me all the time. I have a skill, but I can't access it because my brain isn't functioning in the skill capacity. I'm back in my survival brain. And so I literally cannot use the skills that I know. And I hear this with parents all the time. They're like, I know you know how to put these dishes in the dishwasher. Like, I know you know how to be nicer. And yeah, they do know. They do. A part of their brain is registering, oh my gosh, I know better and I am not doing better. Like, what is this? If we're feeling under threat, and that's not if the person near us is intending to be putting us under threat, but if we're feeling under threat, our brain immediately compensates by taking our best thinking brain offline. So all those incredible tools and skills that we've been painstakingly teaching are gone. They can't use them. So that's where can't becomes really essential, and where simply teaching skills is not going to get us where we want to go. That creating an environment of genuine safety where our expectations match their capacity, even when that capacity is really fluctuating day after day after day, that taking our expectations and even bringing them under their capacity so that they know they can meet our expectations, and then the capacity is allowed to fluctuate, but they're never letting us down. They're never going below. It's so counter to the way that we're taught to parent. I totally get it if your brain is kind of exploding. Okay, what if it feels like my daughter won't with me, but does with other people, like my parents or her dad? So common, so very real. And especially for those of us who are primary caregivers, who are the universal, the expected, the always parent, it's very common that we get a lot more of what feels like a won't. We know it's a can't, so we can get curious. I wonder why with me she can't and with others she can. There's a lot of different layers to that, a lot of different possibilities that are all operating at the same time. So the first one is safety. We show our can't most to people that we trust most. This isn't happening consciously, it's happening under the conscious brain. It's a similar dynamic where if you've been in a really stressful season and then it's finally over and you get sick, your body knew that you couldn't get sick because you were in survival mode. It was only when that survival mode ended that you were allowed to bottom out. The same is happening nervous system wise in our relationships. We hold it together all day at school and then we fall apart at home, or we hold it together all weekend with grandparents and then we fall apart. The falling apart isn't a sign that, like, I know I can get away with this with you, or I don't respect you, or I think of you as less than me and you're my servant. And so I know you'll clean up after me. It's still not a won't, it's still a can't. So it's your kid's way of saying, hey, my nervous system is shot. I am so exhausted from holding it together everywhere else. It could be masking. It could be a nervous system in survival mode where you are providing that safe space for them to fall apart. It could be that they're reacting differently to different people's energy. If their nervous system is more of a fawn type, it shows up like people pleasing. We're like, okay, I'll do everything you ask of me in order to stay safe, because I know that if I don't, then something bad is going to happen. And we internalize that message real, real deep. So that could be operating. And then one more thing that might be happening is that your kid might be depending on you as their safe space in order to access those other environments. So it's kind of a different thing. Like for us, when we took out school and some of these other challenging environments, we did see less overall dysregulation at home. It wasn't just like I'm holding it together and then I'm bottoming out. It was like, I know you're not going to ask something that's too hard of me. I know that you're creating a life that's actually doable for me. I know that no matter what, I can say no, I can back out. You're on my team forever and always. And because of that, my behavior is going to get more steady because this overall life works better for me. So it also can be a bigger picture contribution that you make. It's like, I've got to fall apart somewhere. And the only place I can do that right now is with my mom. This is my last question. This one's also really common. Have you ever noticed that starting low demand can bring out more can'ts that they used to do alone? Yes, definitely. First couple of months of low demand for us, I didn't have any map to follow. I was just mucking it out, figuring it out completely by myself. A lot of what I walk through with families make this 6 months wandering in the darkness experience that I had so much clearer and so much smaller and less terrifying. But for me, the first couple of months up to like the first 6 months, I felt every single day like, what have I done? I have created a monster, was the language. And I wasn't thinking of any particular kid. It was just like the whole thing. And at the same time, there was so much ease and joy. Like right away, some things were so much better. And other things were like a million times harder. I had a mentor teacher say 2 things that really helped me with this. The first is that it's taken you years to get here, and it's going to take you a long time to get out of it too. And that was helpful. It's like, okay, yeah, stuff doesn't shift overnight. The magic of low demand isn't actually dropping the demands. It's that dropping demands create capacity for trusting connection. And trusting connection is what changes everything. So until trusting connection comes in, yeah, things can be hard. And sometimes that's because you've changed things, like just saying, I'm not going to force you anymore, or you don't have to eat at the table, or like dropping demands is a change. It's a shift. It's a shift in expectation. And just a change can be challenging and dysregulating for the nervous system. So it'll take time just for it not to be new anymore. The second thing that could be present is that a lot of the battling and a lot of the secondary stuff has been overshadowing the primary. So for example, if you've been battling at the dinner table over like you need to
turn off your screen and come to dinner. And it's all been about the screen. This is exactly what happened for us. Eventually, we had to disentangle those two things. Like, okay, yeah, stopping the screen is hard, admittedly, because we have this overall culture of scarcity and shame around it and all this muck. And that's why that's so hard. But also, coming to the table is really hard. And there's like 1,000 demands happening at the table. You don't want to be eating at the table. You don't like the sound of other people chewing. You don't like sharing attention with me and your siblings. You don't like the food that I'm serving. You don't like the smell of what I'm eating. All that stuff was there too. And we had to disentangle those two things. And so there is this process where like you drop screen time demands. You can bring your screen to the table, but then it's still really hard. And you discover, oh yeah, that's because there were all these other demands that were just hiding under there. The third reason that it can get a lot harder is that your kids probably have been masking and performing for you. And when their nervous systems finally begin to relax, like, oh, wait, I can actually say when something's too hard for me, that there was a lot more that was too hard for them than you knew. It looked like they were able to do it fine, but they really weren't fine because now they're letting you know that. And so you were chugging along here and there was tons of conflict and everybody was super dysregulated, but you were doing a bunch of stuff. And then you start to let go. And then there's this like, oh, we're not doing a bunch of stuff anymore. Like, whoa, we're not doing much at all. That's the healing phase. And then you can create a new life together. Some of the stuff comes back. Some new things come in that weren't there before, but some stuff stays gone because that stuff never worked anyway. And it needs to stay gone. Creating that life that's actually doable for you and your kid and everybody in your family dynamic, that's the low demand life. That's the real stuff. So the early phases of dropping demands is just about healing, trust. It's about you figuring out how to do this life that's so different than you thought it would be. It's about the inner work. It's about healing. It's about release. That's all what that is. And yeah, there's going to be a lot more can'ts that come up when you begin to allow the possibility of can't. Suddenly it all comes tumbling out. The same is true for us, right? When I work with parents and we're like, okay, like laundry is killing me. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's get into it. Turns out there's a lot of other things that are killing you that touch on laundry. Like, well, and organizing the house is killing me and my work schedule is killing me and also my back hurts. And there's all this stuff hiding underneath laundry is killing me. And when we start to peel back, we're like, oh, there's actually a lot there. Okay, so it may not just be laundry. We might need a doctor's appointment. We might need marriage counseling, all this stuff. The reality that was never working for you and it was just hiding underneath laundry isn't working for me. We can relate. That's the way it is for our kids.
If this podcast is speaking to your soul, you can subscribe through wherever you get your own podcasts. Even better, if you feel the nudge, head on over to Apple Podcasts in particular and leave us a review. It's such a helpful way for new people to also get to experience what this podcast wants to bring into their lives. I'm Amanda. Remember, it takes great strength to let things go. I'll see you next week.